Welcome back to a new What If Naruto Was Dawn Sage Part 2. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto nor this fanfic. So let me get this straight. We're going to waltz into the most heavily defended hidden village in the world in full Akatsuki regalia, drop hints about how we're looking for the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, and no one will care. Asked Deidara in disbelief after hearing her partner's master plan. People will care, that's the point. Nabbing the Jinchuriki on an irregular mission to God knows where or Lord forbid in the village is suicide. Spoke the young sage. This way. They give him a couple of protectors and ship him off somewhere hidden so we don't wreck the village if we tried to get him that way. Which we won't, because as strong as we are, no one can take on an entire hidden village, let alone the hidden leaf. Contrary to his statement, Naruto could think of 6 people who could probably pull off the feat he claimed to be impossible. Besides, leader gave us permission to put Akatsuki on the map. If some people see us, it's no big deal. Look, my art could probably level a city, but stealth and kidnappings are not my strong suit, yet. Said Deidara, loath to admit that her art had any shortcomings. That's why you're partnered with me. My jutsu are based around small-scale damage with varying levels of lethality. You just make sure the Jinchuriki doesn't start a full transformation. My summons don't like to be called for tailed beast emergencies. Said Naruto, both to reassure Deidara and fill the time with idle chatter. Speaking of which, I've never actually seen you summon anything before. What even is your summoning contract? Asked Deidara, more than willing to oblige Naruto's unspoken request for conversation. The response was cut off by Naruto's abrupt halt. He stuck out his hand to signal a stop. We're here, said Naruto as he began running through several hand seals. Where is here exactly? This is just some random clearing. The hidden leaf is just about a mile ahead. Let's just go ahead and get this brilliant plan of yours over and done, said Deidara. Despite her frustration, she didn't go past Naruto. She had learned over the years that his sensory abilities were surpassed by none except Zetsu and Pain. When he said to stop, you stopped, even if it was in the middle of the woods for no discernible reason. Naruto finished his seals and put his right hand on Deidara's chest, while his left hand took a place on his chest. Just as Deidara was about to call him out for feeling her up, a sealing matrix spread out from Naruto's hands, running across her body before fading. Okay, what was that, yet? Asked Deidara, thoroughly confused by her partner's actions. The hidden leaf is surrounded by a sealed dome, which alerts a team of highly trained ninja about anyone unauthorized entering the city. It doesn't pick up low chakra levels, so trade is fairly unrestricted. And all leaf headbands have a small seal inside to allow entrance to the village, so their own ninja can pass inside with no problem. Informed Naruto. If there's some all-seeing seal dome around the village, how come I've never heard of it? Asked Deidara. Because it's a ninja village, responded Naruto simply. They keep secrets. Then how did you find out about it, yet? Asked Deidara, now just annoyed at her partner. I sensed it easily enough, it's drawing enough natural chakra to turn my even me into stone. But I still wouldn't have a clue what the heck it was if Itaka hadn't told me before hand. Responded Naruto, answering every question posed to him with a calm that betrayed his young age. You and that Uchiha, it's weird, yet. You'd think you were partners with that jerk instead of with me, the way you two get along. Though I must admit, those Sharingan are pretty. Not art level, but they're up there, said Deidara as Naruto laughed at his partner's antics. Let's go then. I hear the ramen in the hidden leaf is wonderful, said Naruto, his toad-like eyes glowing with anticipation. Blag. It's always ramen with you. We're eating some real food this time, yet. Let's try to find a dango stand, said Deidara as the two walked into the village proper, drawing some strange looks from the guards for their strange attire and obscuring hats. That's even less of a meal than ramen is. At least my suggestion isn't dessert. Deadpanned Naruto. Any better ideas that soggy noodles or delicious sweets? Asked an annoyed Deidara. Ramen for lunch then dango for dessert. Ventured Naruto tentatively. Deal. The two teenaged members of Akatsuki finished their lunch without event, if one ignored the simply insane amounts of ramen Naruto consumed within the time it took Deidara to finish a single bowl. Deidara decided to throw Naruto under the bus if Kakuzu asked why they had spent more than the allotted amount on this mission. Which of course would happen, since Kakuzu's allotted amount practically had them paying him out of pocket, as opposed to them actually getting money out of the tall bounty hunter. Deidara looked around and was annoyed to see that her absent-minded following of her partner had led them not to a dango stand, but to the outskirts of the village alongside a small waterway. What's the big idea, yet? I was looking forward to those sweets. Asked Deidara, only acting annoyed. She knew that Naruto never did anything without reason, even if it wasn't always a good one. I thought we might want to eat after dealing with the rats that have been following us, hoping we'd drop something. Said Naruto with a meaningful glance over his shoulder. 2 figures jumped out of the trees and landed several yards away from the Akatsuki partners. One of them was a tall man with beard and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, while the other was a beautiful woman who was wearing more bandages than actual dress. The first to speak was the man. Who are you? And what business do you have in the leaf? He inquired, hands twitching towards his kunao pouch. We're simply artists and collectors. We were looking for quite the rare piece here in the leaf. Once we heard it might be here, we came as soon as we were able. After all, there are only 9 pieces like it in the world. Said Naruto smoothly. He was referring to the Jinchuriki, hoping that these jonin could pick up on the hint. Unfortunately, he appeared to have overestimated them. What if we don't believe you? Asked the female, hands moving into a more practical position for hand seals as her chakra built up. Oh, for the love of God, yet. Let's just get this over with. Shouted Deidara as she removed her hat. Naruto sighed as the slashed rock forehead protector gleamed in the light. We're here looking for the 9 tails. Hand him over, and we won't level this place. Deidara, need I remind you we're here to gather information, not start a war. Let me handle this. Chided Naruto as he removed his own hat. He turned his eyes to the side briefly, as he sensed a small chakra level retreating. He had almost missed it next to the 2 jonin flaring their chakra right next to him, but natural chakra missed nothing. He turned his attention to the 2 hidden leaf ninja before him. So if you could just tell us where he is, we'll leave with no trouble. Sora isn't in the village at the moment, but you won't be around when he gets back, so don't worry. The man pulled out 2 small knives as he dashed forward that seemed harmless enough, but Naruto could see the chakra rolling off of them in waves. He blocked the first one with his Sage Mode enhanced forearm, but the wind chakra still managed to leave a small cut. Naruto didn't dwell on it however, and quickly grabbed the jonin's other fist, leaving another shallow cut on his palm, to prevent his opponent from forming any seals. Naruto had to appreciate the chakra blades that would have certainly bisected a normal human, and he was grateful for his diamond-hard skin. He pulled his opponent in, brought his knee into the man's gut, driving the wind from him like a ton of bricks. Naruto stepped behind his foe and raised his hand to deliver the finishing blow when his hand was stopped by the branches of a tree that had grown from the stones behind him. Naruto linked the obvious genjutsu with the flaring chakra from the woman from before. Once he recognized it, Naruto broke the genjutsu without even trying thanks to the natural chakra constantly flooding his chakra system. By simply changing the rate at which he absorbed natural chakra, Naruto could break all but the strongest genjutsu. However, Naruto heeded his own advice to Deidara. They did need someone to actually spread the word of their search for the Nine Tails so they could make an attempt when the hidden leaf tried to move the Jinchuriki to a safer location. Naruto was so engrossed with his thoughts he almost missed the kunai that the woman drove into his neck. Almost. One didn't have perfect chakra sensing and miss that. They kunai glanced off his sage mode enhanced skin, much to the woman's surprise. Naruto brought his hand down to grip the woman's wrist before flipping her over his shoulder. His left hand went to punch her in midair and send her flying. But before he could make contact, she exploded in a shower of flower petals. The male jonin used his position on the ground to attempt a leg sweep, but was grimaced in pain when his kick connected with what felt like a brick wall. The Akatsuki member didn't move an inch as the leaf jonin retreated to regroup. Naruto didn't need to. He had worked with Deidara long enough to know how long it took to prepare a piece of art. "Deidara, now!" said Naruto as he turned his back on his opponents to jump onto the white bird that rose from the walkway behind him. Deidara grinned as she threw her hands out at the two-leaf ninja. Two small white birds with 4 wings apiece flew swiftly at the duo. Katsu. Deidara was annoyed at the lack of art that accompanied her shout of creation. Instead of an artistic smear on the ground, 2 hounds made of lightning were chewing on her clay. Creations like chew toys before they dispersed into the air. The 2 jonin that Naruto had effectively manhandled had been joined by a third that was helping them to their feet. The newcomer had a head of spiky silver hair and wore both a mask and a headband over his left eye, leaving only his right eye exposed. Deidara wasn't too mad about the destruction of her art though. She had left a surprise for the man who had managed to draw blood from Naruto, a feat even her art hadn't accomplished. As the duo flew away, a segmented centipede rose from the ground and wrapped itself around the bearded jonin. The lightning user channeled his element into his right hand and sliced the centipede from top to bottom. Another one of her creations would have been shorted out by the electrical interference, but this art was actually many small pieces that acted independently. The portions that had been cut in half by their weakness didn't detonate, but the lower ones that had yet to be touched exploded with all the glory Deidara had come to expect from her art. Shikamaru and Koji were in a hurry. Sure, Sora was an abrasive jerk, but he was a fellow member of Team 10. Asuma had been rushed to the hospital, unconscious with his legs a mangled mess, so it was up to them to help warn Sora of these Akatsuki people that wanted him dead. It hadn't taken long for Shikamaru to find out that Sora had left with Jiraiya of the Sunin to find Tsunade of the Sunin, both to become the next Hokage and heal the previous Hokage, who had fallen into a coma after his fight against the 4th Kazekage. The attempted invasion of the hidden sand had been painful, but not devastating by any means. The hidden leaf would recover. Shikamaru knew that there were certain people that would want revenge, but he also knew that no one wanted to spark another war. Both sides had lost enough already, further conflict would just drag in the other nations. Shikamaru had found out from his father that the targeted duo was starting their search in Tanzaku town, a small tourist community not too far from the hidden village. He had no doubts that Jiraiya could handle himself, but the element of surprise had killed many ninja before the legendary Sunin, and would kill many after. If he knew about the threat, half the battle was already won. The 2 friends arrived at Tanzaku town and were simply overwhelmed by the sheer hustle and bustle of the city. The hidden leaf was just a large, but it was designed around utility and defense, not as a massive advertisement. The 2 decided to split up and search for Jiraiya and Sora separately to speed things up. Shikamaru figured that if they were found by the Akatsuki, 2 genin would be little more threat than 1. The only hope they had was to find Jiraiya before Akatsuki. It had been a while since Jiraiya had seen the small toad on his windowsill. The tiny red creature had told him that it possessed crucial information, but would only reveal it if the Sunin caught it and bought the toad candy. The toad then jumped off the windowsill and began hopping like mad through the city. It took Jiraiya several seconds to process what had just happened. Jiraiya had never met this particular toad, and so had no way to simply summon him back. And so the great Sunin, toad sage of Mount Myabokuzen, the man men want to be and women want, was reduced to chasing a toad the size of his fist around the town like a genin on his first D rank. He had told the tag-along kid that Asuma had sent with him to book a room at the hotel, and Jiraiya was almost glad to be away from the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki's incessant whining. Or he would be, if this accursed toad wasn't so darn fast. Naruto and Deidara hovered above Tanzaku town, doing lazy circles on the clay hawk. Naruto had yet to meet the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki himself, but he assumed he simply had to find the biggest chakra source in the city and find its source. The two largest in the city were actually fairly close in size, but they were traveling together, so Naruto could only assume that these travelers were the Jinchuriki and its protector. Once Deidara described the two to him courtesy of some long-range reconnaissance from the camera-like device. Over her left eye, Naruto recognized the younger as the Jinchuriki Sasori and Zetsu had found, while the older was Jiraiya of the Sunin, the only other toad summoner. It had been a clever plan, in Naruto's opinion, to lure Jiraiya away with a Gamakeki by promising snacks should he distract the Sunin for long enough. It was almost too easy, which is why something had to go wrong. He really couldn't even blame anyone but himself. He had focused a bit too much on making sure that their entrance didn't destroy half the city and so had dismissed the two relatively small chakra signatures that were quickly approaching the target. The three immortals of Akatsuki would never let him live down such a rookie mistake, even if he was still technically a rookie. The approach had gone smoothly enough. They had descended, no one paying them any more attention than they would any other bird. They had entered the hotel through the window of an adjacent room. Naruto entered the hotel proper, while Deidara remained at the window to give pursuit should the Jinchuriki attempt to flee out of the window. They two young Akatsuki members had decided to stick it to their superiors by capturing one of their targets first, only several miles from the nearest hidden village to top it all off. Of course, any prolonged conflict would bring both the wrath of the Hidden Leaf and the scorn of their elders in Akatsuki. Naruto decided to tackle this one himself, since Deidara wasn't really a stealth person. Naruto calmly knocked on the door, but inside he was a raging tumult of emotions. If this Leaf Genin was really the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki or a suitable substitute, Naruto was off the hook. All he had to do was not use the Nine-Tails chakra, something he didn't even know how to do, in front of an Akatsuki member, and he was home free. Several seconds after his knock, the door opened, and a blue-haired kid poked his head out, Leaf Forehead Protector on display upon his forehead. To the average passerby, he was a normal kid, if a ninja. But to Naruto, his chakra was a raging sea of raw energy, most of it his own, but trace amounts undeniably demonic in nature. Focusing on the source of the demonic chakra, Naruto found the sea located on the Jinchuriki's stomach contained a chakra exactly like his own. The only difference was the sheer amount, but that would hardly matter. Nine-Tails chakra was Nine-Tails chakra, regardless of the amount. Naruto was safe. Who the hell are you? Naruto had been so focused on the relief he felt at not being hunted down by his own comrades that he almost missed the target's annoyed response to being woken up from a wonderful nap. Naruto went to step forward and sucker punch the target. With Sage Mode, it would be an easy knockout. Only he couldn't move. Shadow possession complete. Naruto's eye widened as he realized what the target had done. The reason his chakra had been so large and easy to read was because he had been flaring it. The massive chakra source in the small room, coupled with Naruto's single-mindedness in his sensing, meant that the two smaller sources that had been trying to hide their chakra had been passed over without a second thought. With Naruto now on full alert, the two genin were as easy to spot as his own Akatsuki cloak. Naruto had missed them, and was now paying the price. He couldn't move as the large, now larger, genin began spinning towards him. Naruto was in trouble. Or he would be, if he weren't a sage, member of Akatsuki, an S-rank ninja. The shadow that was connected to his own was easily destroyed with some sage chakra channeled through it. He brought his hands up to catch the large human boulder that was hurtling towards him. Thanks to his sage mode, it didn't hurt in the slightest, but the sheer velocity and mass of the technique sent him skidding back into the hallway. The spinning finally stopped, but before the large ball could revert back to a more human shape, Naruto brought his right hand back. He used said hand to deliver a powerful strike to the middle of the large mass in front of him. One could see the hit send ripples across the ball before the genin was sent flying down the hall, cracking the wall upon impact. The fat leaf genin's technique ended as he was forcefully sent spiraling into unconsciousness. With one out of the way, Naruto turned his attention to the two genin in the room, who had since moved out into the hallway. The weaker one's shadow shot out once more, but that was easily dealt with via brute force. The Jinchuriki ran at him with a set of claws, obviously assuming that Naruto would be held immobile by the strange shadow technique. Naruto noticed the chakra coming off of the claws, similar to the day's earlier encounter with a set of trench knives. Not wanting to be cut by a set of genin, Naruto spat a glob of toad oil into the Jinchuriki's face. The oil obscured the blur of movement that was Naruto even more as he delivered a vicious chop to the back of the Jinchuriki's neck, sending him to a forced sleep. Naruto continued on to the third genin, the one that had managed to catch him off guard. Naruto was a sage. Sages were not caught off guard. It might have been petty, but Naruto was in a hurry, and Akatsuki was supposed to be brutal and unforgiving. The straightforward jab appeared to be a simple attack to dodge, and despite Naruto's speed, the young genin appeared to do just that. Then he went flying down the hall anyway. Shikamaru struggled to stay conscious. He hadn't planned on the Akatsuki being this ridiculously powerful. The plan was supposed to end when Koji's human boulder connected with the man at the door. But instead the attack had failed for whatever reason, most likely a defensive jutsu of high rank, and the following fight was better described as a no-holds-barred beatdown. But Sora was a teammate, and dare he say it, a friend. Shikamaru would not allow Akatsuki to win this easily. He struggled to his feet, but his vision was blurred and his ears were ringing with strange notes. He knew he had no real hope of beating an S-rank ninja as he was. And people wondered why he enjoyed himself while he could. Shikamaru was honestly surprised, something that didn't happen often, when his vision cleared up, and was more shocked when he was surrounded by 4 large toads, each wearing what would have been a comical get-up in any other situation. Beyond them was a nondescript pink background. The toads seemed immobile, standing with a sword in one hand and the other thrust out as if to hold Shikamaru back. "Enjoy your stay. You won't be leaving." Shikamaru looked down to see the Akatsuki member he had been fighting fading away. This was a genjutsu, it had to be. Shikamaru disrupted his chakra flow, slowing down his life energy to a trickle before using all he had in one big flare. When he opened his eyes, he is still surrounded by the 4 toads, in his strange prison. Only the toad song to keep him company. Naruto supposed that using the toad confrontation chant might have been overkill for a simple genin, but he was still kind of angry from the whole immobilization thing earlier. Plus, with all luck, the hidden leaf would place a higher priority on 2 genin in comas than a third who went mysteriously missing. Naruto turned around to collect the Jinchuriki, but was furious at what he saw, not that he showed it. "I thought I heard Toad's song," spoke the man in red, who was holding the Jinchuriki over his shoulder. The newcomer was clad in red and wore a headband with the kanji for oil on it. Naruto grit his teeth at the appearance of the Toad Sunin, knowing that any conflict with him would be long and loud enough to bring any ninja within 100 miles. Sunin set his charge up against the wall, before running through the seals for the summoning technique. You won't be leaving here. When Jiraiya slapped his hands on the ground, the walls began to morph into a pink flesh. Naruto recognized this as a cave he once found on Mount Myabokuzen, which was in actuality the throat of a massive toad. With the Jinchuriki and the two genin, one unconscious and the other staring blankly into space, Naruto didn't think that he would have to worry about the fire-breathing aspect of this toad that had nearly roasted him all those years ago. Naruto prepared to fight his way out, but Jiraiya noticed the clay spider that was lurking on the ceiling. The spider jumped down, but was impaled on the Sunin's now spikier white mane as it wrapped around him and the Jinchuriki. The explosive went off anyway, and Deidara ran out of the room she had been waiting in. She might like a fight more than Naruto, but she had no wish to use her ultimate art today, and the Sunin would definitely hold them long enough for help to arrive. She knew when a plan had gone south. When Jiraiya's hair returned to its regular size and shape, he was surprised by the amount of smoke in the corridor. The lack of a follow-up attack meant that the Akatsuki duo had fled when he was distracted by the explosion going off in his hair. What the Sunin couldn't figure out was how they had done it. The toad mouth bind was durable enough to take those kinds of explosions all day. As the smoke cleared, Jiraiya first noticed the safety of the three genin on Team 10. Then he noticed the completely clear walls. Somehow, they two had managed to completely destroy the throat of the mountain toad enough to force a summon dismissal. Jiraiya turned the corner to see a large hole in the wall of the hotel. No doubt caused by that exploding jutsu. Jiraiya approached the wall to check the damage and look for clues as to how they had managed to dismiss his toad. Dynamic entry. Jiraiya knew then, it was just not his day. Being home was a good feeling for most people. Granted, most people didn't leave home after killing hundreds of allies in attempt to murder a country's leader, getting pursued by legions of hunter ninja, and joining a group of legends and monsters. So Kisame was not experiencing a good feeling because he was home. He was experiencing a good feeling because he was home to finish what he started. Sure, he wasn't supposed to kill the fourth Mizukage in battle like he wanted, but watching the life be slowly siphoned out of him over 3 excruciating days would suffice. Using the Blue Man's intricate knowledge of the islands that composed the Land of Water and the secret tunnels that connected them, Kisame and his partner had snuck through the country to arrive at the village hidden in the mist. The Uchiha wasn't happy about the heavy mist obscuring his precious eyesight, but Kisame was in his element. He had never been as good as Zabuza at silent killing, a fact that irked him each and every day, but the mist was his ally nonetheless. The two S-rank ninjas maneuvered their way around the village for several days, keeping a low profile as they observed the Mizukage's routine. Of course, the two Akatsuki members left the reconnaissance mostly up to Itaki, since Itaki wasn't a missing ninja from the same village they were hiding in. His Sharingan allowed him to discreetly obtain information from loyal mist ninja via genjutsu and memorize anything instantaneously. And he wasn't a 6-foot-tall blue shark man carrying a massive national treasure on his back secured in some bandages. That might have also had something to do with it. Over a week or two, the dangerous duo had discovered that among the Mizukage's routine, the young ruler trained on a private island not even his ANBU were allowed on. Not only would the Mizukage be alone, but any massive combat commotion that would no doubt ensue when 3 ninja of their caliber clashed would be written off as the Mizukage training. The two snuck onto the island as the Mizukage left from his training session and prepared for his arrival the next day. Upon arriving at his island retreat the next day, Yagura entered a forest that he hadn't destroyed yet during his training. He walked into the foliage for several minutes before he stopped and spoke aloud. I'm fully aware why Kisame would be after me, but I find it difficult to imagine what I did that deserves the wrath of an Uchiha as well. Kisame is aware of this, but I'll warn as Uchiha as well. If you fight me with Kisame, it will be the last fight of your life. The two Akatsuki members emerged from the trees into the clearing where Yagura stood. Itake was the one to respond in his monotone drawl. We could care less about you. We're after the tailed beast, you are a minor inconvenience. Yagura laughed aloud at that. You really think you can take me? Asked Kisame. He tried once before, and it took all his skills to escape with his life. And I haven't been resting on my laurels either. So come at me, and see if you can make me draw even a drop of the Three Tails chakra, said Yagura as he took the hooked staff from its place on his back. Yagura held out his other hand in a half-ram seal as he held out his staff. A small circle of water formed at the tip, and launched a barrage of needles at the Akatsuki members. Upon closer inspection, one would see that these needles were not made of water as one might expect, but of coral. The Mizukage's coral was unique even by ninja standards, as it drained chakra from whatever it latched onto to grow even larger, eventually encasing its target. Kisame stabbed his blade into the ground and balanced on top of it to get above the coral's reach, but Itake allowed himself to be struck, only to dissolve into a flock of crows. Kisame meanwhile was busy forming hand seals while balancing on the hilt of Same Hata. Upon finishing the seals, the water specialist of Akatsuki reared back his head before puking out hundreds of gallons of water, forming a small tidal wave. As the water rose into the air, Yagura simply twirled his staff around in a circle, the motion forming a larger mirror of water. Upon completing the circle, Yagura hooked the top of his mirror with his staff and drug it to the ground in a single movement. When the mirror struck the ground, water exploded upwards, far more than the mirror had been composed of. Soon Yagura stood atop his own tidal wave, equal in size and shape to Kisame's own. The two exploding water shockwaves collided and cancelled each other out, and Same Hata collided with Yagura's staff in a mighty clash of steel and scales. The excess water from the attacks flooded the forest under several dozen feet of water. The two mist ninja landed apart from each other, standing on the water as Itake reformed out of crows next to Kisame. The blue shark man was frustrated that his attack had been so easily beaten, but Yagura leaned on his staff wearing a smirk. Kisame ran at the Mizukage, who brought up his staff in a defensive stance. Itake ran after Kisame to assist, but the Mizukage was doing nothing but defending almost contemptuously, wielding his staff effortlessly with one hand. Yagura brought the hook of his weapon down to catch the hilt of Same Hata, ripping it from Kisame's grasp. Coral palm! Shouted Yagura as he struck forward with his free hand at Kisame's exposed chest. Before he could make contact, however, Itake struck with his own jutsu. Yagura and Kisame jumped apart as the flaming dragon screamed past them, the water beneath it turning into steam. Yagura's hand caught the edge of the flames despite his hasty retreat, leaving him with a bad burn across his left hand, but nothing an experienced ninja like Yagura couldn't ignore. Kisame landed, and Same Hata shot through the water towards him, eager to be reunited with its master. Itake and Kisame glanced at each other, then nodded in unison. The two moved in perfect harmony, created from years of working together. Itake dissolved once more into a flock of crows, as Kisame sprinted around Yagura. The crows flocked around Yagura to obscure his vision, but Yagura was able to bat away those that came too close with ease, and sensing Kisame's monstrous chakra was so simple an academy student could do it. Time seemed to slow, however, as one of the crows flew directly past his face, its Sharingan eye staring back intently. The world dissolved to black and white, and the clouds moved backwards in the sky. The crows flying about morphed into shuriken that flew towards the fourth Mizukage at amazing speeds, digging into his flesh and restricting his movement. The Mizukage was no stranger to genjutsu, and recognized this one almost immediately, but somehow, the genjutsu was resisting his attempts to disrupt it. However, through sheer force of will, the Mizukage endured. He convinced himself that the pain was not real, even though every fiber of his body was shouting the exact opposite. He convinced himself the pain was fake, until a large object hit him square in the back. He could feel the chakra being drained, no, eaten as Samehada was dragged along his back. The most powerful of the 7 swords shaved off a fair bit of flesh as well. Yagura could only compare the sensation to having a stick covered in razor blades run across his back, only several hundred times worse. Looking up to the black sky, Yagura saw that not even that pain had been able to break him out of the genjutsu. As he gazed upon the Sharingan moon, he realized it was getting closer. He tried to move, but the pain, both real and genjutsu-induced, made sure he could only look on in terror as the orb descended and crushed him. In the distance, he heard Ataka's monotonous voice echo, 71 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds remaining. Ataka held his hand up to cover his bleeding left eye as Yagura collapsed on the ground. Kisame turned his eyes to his partner, worried that whatever technique Ataka used had some detrimental side effect. Their attention quickly turned to the Mizukage, who despite the powerful genjutsu and extreme pain was standing back up, this time coated in a cloak of solid red chakra. 3 tails swished behind him as he moved his hands together into a series of hand seals. Kisame brought up Samehada, to deflect whatever came at it. The Minataka's Sharingan blazed back to life, showing him every move in slow motion before it was made. But neither of them was prepared for what came next. The Mizukage slammed his hands together and released a massive blast of demonic chakra. The deep water that Kisame had placed to assist his techniques was pushed back in a large tidal wave that the Akatsuki partners jumped away from. When the water settled, the Mizukage was gone, leaving the 2 missing ninja alone on a placid lake. It seemed as though he had made his escape, but Samehada and Ataka's Sharingan picked up the buildup of chakra below in time for them to start running away. The lake beneath their previous location suddenly erupted in a spray of water and deadly black chakra. As the blast dissipated, a large 3-tailed turtle emerged from the depths of the water. One eye closed, the spiky beast spat out a massive ball of water that quickly approached the 2 Akatsuki members. Kisame brought Samehada up to block the attack, and the shark sword ate the chakra in the water bullet. Kisame was taken aback when the enormous amount of chakra caused Samehada grow exponentially, its sudden increase in mass almost causing Kisame to drop his sword. The most powerful of the 7 swordsmen had been sure that Samehada could take more than 1 water bullet, but he didn't know that it wasn't a water bullet. In actuality, it had been a ball of pure water chakra, dense enough to have the appearance of real water. Kisame steadied his now even more massive sword as the half-submerged 3 tails quickly swam towards them. Kisame quickly ran through the hand signs of the one jutsu he knew that might be able to defeat the beast as the hilt of his sword snaked its way up his sleeve. The transformed Yagura was met with a large ball of water in front of him, but confident in the swimming abilities of his transformed state, swam right on in. He could immediately feel his chakra being drained, but against the raw power of a tailed beast, the amount being taken was a pittance. The Mizukage saw a small creature darting around his head, and felt it striking at his hard shell, drawing a little chakra each time. As it darted before him once more, he noticed the figure was actually Kisame, who had somehow developed a method of fusing with his sword to become even more shark-like. The monster that Kisame had become was puny compared to the monster Yagura had become, but he was fast. Monster underwater. Kisame ran through some quick hand seals and summoned a multitude of sharks made of the surrounding water to hide himself in as he, and his sharks, began eating away at the 3 tails chakra reserves. The beast bellowed and swung its tails, destroying many sharks, but the predators seemed to be numberless, splitting into more when they ate enough chakra. The three tails roared, the sound containing a huge amount of chakra itself. Enough chakra, in fact, to disrupt Kisame's feeding frenzy. Technique, as the sharks dispersed into the surrounding waters. The demonic turtle had definitely lost mass, and Kisame was glad to know his jutsu had done something, even if he had been stealing chakra, not flesh. Then Kisame noticed that the beast was actually regaining its previous size before his eyes. The half-shark looked closer and saw that the edges of the beast were made of the same red chakra he had seen. The Mizu cage covered in after-attack is genjutsu. Kisame grinned as he realized the implications of fighting an opponent whose entire body was composed of chakra. The water expert of Akatsuki dispersed his water prison shark dance technique, the water running off into the ocean. His sword emerged from his arm as his appearance became more normal. The three tails didn't expect the sudden change of battlefield, and so fell to the ground from the now air-inhabited sky. Kisame looked up and began flying through the seals needed for his trump card before the giant turtle crushed him. He finished, and thrust his hand skyward. "Super Water Shark Bomb!" shouted Kisame as the water beneath him churned upward, forming a massive shark that charged the falling three tails. The shark engulfed its target, then clamped its mouth shut, mimicking a movement made by Kisame's hands. The three tails began to rapidly shrink and the shark bomb rocketed up into the sky as it grew to epic proportions, dwarfing the sun in the sky. The now chakraless Yagura was launched along in the torrent of water. The technique lived up to its name as it exploded. High in the sky, Kisame panted with his arms raised to the sky as he looked over at his partner, who was looking as odd as his Uchiha pride would let him. The Uchiha had made himself scarce when Kisame had flooded the battlefield, and Kisame was glad for it. They both knew that the fire user would only be a hindrance in the water prison shark dance. The debris from Kisame's shark bomb fell from the sky like rain, but one chunk was larger than the rest. Kisame and Ataka looked at the very wet, very dead body of the fourth Mizu cage before turning their gaze to each other. The final attack had been too powerful, fueled by the full power of a tailed beast, and had killed Yagura. The two were not excited to think of Pain's reaction to their failed mission. On the upside, no one will know it was Akatsuki if we get out of here fast enough, suggested Kisame. Itaka simply nodded, and the two quickly disappeared. Jiraiya was not in a good mood. He had found Tsunade, and she had returned, if just to heal their sensei. The legendary medic had also healed the three genin that had been injured by Akatsuki as well as their sensei, who had nearly had his legs blown off. After the third Hokage's plea, the last Senju had agreed to stay in the village and take over for the old monkey if he kicked the bucket. This was all great news, but it did nothing to alleviate the foul mood that had fallen over the Toad Sage since his brief run-in with Akatsuki. He had thought back to the forced unsummoning of the fire-breathing mountain toad's throat, and the bombs he blocked wouldn't have done the kind of damage necessary to dismiss the summon. Besides, the lack of shockwaves or booms pointed to it not being forced dismissal by damage at all. And the only alternative was dismissal by another summoner. And that was impossible, since Jiraiya knew he was the only summoner, except for the other toads. The Akatsuki member had also seemed to use the toad confrontation chant on Shikamaru, something only Fukasaku and Shima working together could do. Which meant that blonde-haired Akatsuki member had done the impossible twice. And Jiraiya hadn't been looking, but he could have sworn that the missing ninja had been utilizing Sage Mode from Shikamaru's reports. Most took the being hit by nothing after dodging story as the word of a concussed genin who had been in a genjutsu coma for 2 weeks. But Jiraiya knew such technique was possible. And he knew of only 2 people besides himself who could do it. "Ah, Jiraiya my boy. How nice of you to visit. What brings you out to our humble mountain?" asked Fukasaku as Jiraiya approached the dwelling of the 2 elderly toads. "Mazi. Little Madhya don't come by more often, so you might want to compliment her cooking first if you want her to talk to you. Whispered Fukasaku to the old toad summoner. Actually Pa, I'm here to see if you know anything about a group called Akatsuki. Said Jiraiya, cutting right to the chase. I fought one of their members, and he did things only a toad summoner could do. I was wondering when you two would meet. Said Shima as she emerged from the hut carrying a platter of various bugs and insects. Naruto has been a toad summoner in the world for several years now. What? What happened to me picking my own apprentice and successor? And besides, he's allied with the enemy. Exclaimed Jiraiya. Akatsuki isn't just a group of missing ninja. They directly attacked the hidden leaf. You had your shot to pick a successor, but Minato died. And as tragic as that was, there wasn't another successor coming from you, so we picked him to be our summoner. Said Fukasaku calmly. And before you get your mouth all puffed up, the toads serve their summoner. We've been allied with others before the hidden leaf and will be allied with others after the hidden leaf. As long as we have a summoner roaming the world, the toads are content. So, what? I'm not a toad summoner anymore? Asked Jiraiya in disbelief. No. The toads will still heed your calls and follow your instructions, but will also do the same for anyone else who holds our summoning contract. Now calm down before you start crying and have some lunch. Said Shima reassuringly as she held up the platter of food for Jiraiya to sample. No. Thanks. I just ate before I came up here. Panicked the Sunin before becoming serious once more. I understand your reasons, but I still don't like this. Having a toad summoner playing for the other team is something I can't support, and I can't believe you do. Jiraiya, we're older than you by a long shot. This isn't our first picnic, and the transition between summoner loyalties is always conflicting. This method has worked for the toads in the past and it will work again. Maybe not for you, but consider it a trial by fire. If you can beat Naruto, you can pick another summoner to succeed you as the strongest toad summoner. Said Fukasaku solemnly, showing every one of his hundreds of years through his words. All right. I'm not one to argue with tried and true methods like that, but I will be beating this upstart brat and defending my summoning contract. Said Jiraiya, acknowledging his resignation to the way things had to be. So his name is Naruto, hey? Seems familiar. He was named after your first book, you fool. Said Fukasaku, almost proudly. Hey! Grunted Jiraiya. I guess he sort of is my legacy, but if so, he's a legacy I have to erase. Akatsuki isn't some after-school club. They're my enemies, and anyone affiliated with them has to go down. Fukasaku and Shima could only worry about for the lives of their students as Jiraiya walked away from the two elder sages. Pain was not in a good mood. He rarely was, but today was worse than most. He had amassed a group of the strongest missing ninja and unaffiliated ninja in the world, but somehow, they had managed to fail, not once, but 2 times in the same week. Naruto and Deidara were excusable, they were young and trying to prove themselves, and fleeing. When confronted by Jiraiya of the Sun and not 20 miles from the hidden leaf was understandable. But Kisame losing himself in the battle and the past resulted in the death of the 4th Mizukage, and the 3 tails along with him. Luckily the mishap had occurred with one of the lesser-tailed beasts. The more tails the beast had, the longer it would take for the tailed beast to reform. Each tail corresponded to roughly a year, give or take. A 3-year delay was annoying and inconvenient, but at least Kisame hadn't killed the 8 tails. Why Ataka hadn't been able to stop the shark man was a mystery, but the rogue Uchiha had Pain's confidence, unless Pain violated his end of the deal. Pain held no illusions that anyone in Akatsuki besides himself and Konan cared about world peace, and in fact would be surprised if he didn't have to kill some of them before this was all over. He already had. One of the repercussions of Itaka joining Akatsuki had been Pain learning of Madara and his true goals. He had dared defy a god, and paid the price. Pain did have to admit though, the fool had earned his place as an S-rank ninja. It was a confidence booster as well. If Pain could defeat the great Madara Uchiha, he could defeat anyone. But for the most part, Akatsuki helped them get what they wanted, and that was how the missing ninja world worked. You did what suited you with who suited you and dumped them the moment something else suited you more. The process usually involved one of the parties dead on the ground, but not only the best survived. And Akatsuki were the best. Yet the best had messed up twice, once to expose them and their short-term goals to the Hidden Leaf, and once to delay their plan a full 3 years. There was a meeting of Akatsuki about to start, and Pain would let the 4 failures know the depths of his displeasure. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this what if. Please like, comment and subscribe. Also don't forget to share this video with your friends.